Vampires, The Walking Dead, Hominis Nocturna. Ever since vampires have been introduced, they've come from being something feared to a pop culture phenomenon. But the origin of these beasts has been greatly exaggerated. The idea that they could burst into flames when coming in contact with something silver, or when they're exposed to sunlight. Well, I, for one, have done extensive research into the subject and have discovered the science behind it all. My name is William Peterson, and this is Vampires Proven, the science behind the myth. Let's start with the basics of vampires, the fangs and the drinking of blood. Now, long, sharp canines is actually a natural genetic anomaly. It's possible that either parent, either a father or a mother, could have this abnormality, and when the child was born, it was given to them by natural genetics. But now the drinking of blood is a total matter entirely. It's a mutation in the TMPRSX6 gene, which cause iron refractory or iron deficiency anemia. Now, those who actually took biology knows that blood cells in our body contain iron, so iron deficiency will affect the hemoglobin in the blood. Now, there are several side effects to this situation. Now, these symptoms combined with fatigue and headache can easily cause a person to grow so mad, attacking a person and biting them wouldn't seem so crazy. Now, as for the reason why they attack the neck, it's because of the posterior, ocular, occipital, and superficial temporal arteries. In other words, a nice, thick branch of blood to drink from. Being born with the mutation, the baby would have been in constant pain and agony. But his parents and current doctors couldn't figure out what was going on and how to treat him. When he was old enough, the vampire, while suffering from fatigue and headaches, was approaching a young man. The vampire, in a crazed state, attacked the man, and without thinking twice, went for the man's throat. The fangs provide the necessary force to puncture the skin and the artery. With the first taste of blood, the vampire began to feel temporary relief from the madness. But when the symptoms started returning, he turned back to the victim and started drinking the blood again. This time he didn't stop until all the blood was taken. The vampire, feeling alive for the first time in his life, realized the sensation wouldn't last forever. He knew the body would need more blood to survive, so he went to find more blood. Now, it's been widely said that when you're bitten by a vampire, you become one. Well, yes and no. You see, it's revealed that certain viruses like the flu, as well as hepatitis B and C, can be passed from one person to another through saliva, or in this case, a bite. Now, it's possible that the hemoglobin deficiency virus could have been transferred through the bite, and when it entered the body of a healthy person, it rewrote their genetics. As the madness and pain started returning, the first vampire attacked another person, but this time he didn't drink all the blood. He only took enough to become well again, or at least as well as a vampire can be. Now, because he didn't drink all the blood, the person still lived. And, given time, the virus turned that person into a vampire. And soon that person started needing to drink blood. Now, the first generation of vampires only had to deal with finding blood, but the next generation would find themselves burdened with what would become one of the greatest weaknesses a vampire can ever have. According to folklore, when a vampire is exposed to sunlight, their skin burns, and eventually their whole body bursts into flames. Now, while some of this is over-exaggerated, there is scientific evidence for such a genetic disorder. It's called Xenoderma pygmalion, or XP for short. It is a rare, abnormal, recessive genetic disorder of DNA repair in which the ability to repair damage caused by ultraviolet light is deficient. Now, the symptoms include dry, scaly skin, severe sunburn when exposed to light, rough skin growth, painful eye sensitivity to sunlight, blistering skin from minimal sunlight exposure, and limited growth of hair on chest and legs. Now, in extreme cases, all exposure to sunlight must be forbidden, no matter how small. For such individuals with this disease are often referred to as moon children. One of the first vampires attacks a person at night, not realizing that that person was a moon child. Now, that person survived and went home. When the sun came up, that person was sleeping, but a tiny sliver of light managed to get in there. He screamed out in pain and closed it. Come the next night, the person started feeling very strange, like he needed to drink something. Water wouldn't cut it. So, eventually he attacked another person. Realizing blood was what they needed, they just started drinking. It only took enough to hide the symptoms, but he also gave birth to another vampire. Now, this vampire didn't have the disease. Now, this person was a morning person. So when he got up and started moving towards the sunlight, he screamed out in pain because he felt his skin blister. Now, it's possible that when a person saw the skin blistering, they thought that fire was burning inside the body. Thus, the folklore. And then it got stretched. In vampire movies, it is revealed that if you were to take a ring of garlic cloves and put it on your door, a vampire won't go near it. It is also said that if a vampire comes in contact with garlic or even eats it, it'll kill him. Well, Hollywood might have over-exaggerated this weakness, but to an extent. The condition is called dermatitis, a rare rash similar to eczema, and it's caused by an allergic reaction to garlic. Now, when referring to vampires, in rare cases, patients who receive a blood transfusion can inherit the allergy from their donor. A second-generation vampire attacked someone unbeknownst to their severe allergy to garlic. That person becomes a vampire and attacks another person. Now, the third generation of vampires has the genetic weakness, because a person who enjoys eating garlic with that food now realizes that it burns. Dermatitis also plays a role in another serious issue, silver, which, according to movies, is very deadly to vampires, which is why vampire hunters like Blade, played by Wesley Snipes, uses silver-plated weapons, and the second a vampire is struck with it, they burst into flames. That is over-exaggerated, but the condition does exist. Essentially, it's caused by an allergen to the metal nickel, which is used to manufacture precious metal alloys such as silver. The third generation vampire attacks a man with the allergy to silver, and thus a fourth generation is created. Fourth generation vampire attacks a young woman. She becomes a vampire. She finds a pendant that she really likes, but it's made out of silver. So when she touches it, she screams out in pain. And then shows her vampire self, which, according to Hollywood, is her going and showing her teeth. Now, by this time, people know all about vampires, and seeing the reaction, believe that vampires just can't handle silver. According to legend, vampires with enhanced senses can see better, and in the movie Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman, Dracula states that he can hear a person's heartbeat from a distance. Now, as it turns out, there are people who have such enhanced senses, but these abilities are based on handicaps. People who can hear better are blind. And in some reports, people who are deaf can see better. Now, it's possible the fifth and sixth generation of vampires got these enhanced abilities separately. In other words, fourth generation vampire bit a deaf person, thus indicating fifth generation having enhanced sight. Then, fifth generation vampire bites a blind person. Sixth generation enhanced senses. Remember, we're talking genetics here.